offence. This is a government that is paralysed by its own legal advice, paralysed by its rebellious backbenchers, and paralysed by the fear of being found out for having no real vision for this country.
Keir Starmer didn't just lose the floor today, he lost the room, the narrative, and whatever scraps of credibility he had left on foreign policy. What unfolded wasn't politics as usual. It was a slow, methodical humiliation broadcast live. While he tried to present himself as the calm statesman in turbulent times, his opponents, especially Kemi Badenoch, tore through his image with surgical precision. From Britain's shrinking global role to embarrassing deals with China, from being sidelined by NATO to being mocked over his own MPs mutinying, every angle of his leadership was exposed, ridiculed, and left defenceless. What made it worse? Starmer responded not with force, but with fragile denial, repeating the words. What did he say in his defence? Let's find out.
On the news. This is a weak statement from a weak Prime Minister, which can be characterised in 2 words: noises off. In his statement, the Prime Minister said, "We urge Iran and Israel to honour the ceasefire." He said, "We are using every diplomatic lever to support this effort." What diplomatic levers? Are they the same levers he's using with his backbench rebels? Is he just asking them to please play nice? Let's be honest, Mr. Speaker. Nobody cares what this Prime Minister thinks, and why should they, when he doesn't even know what he thinks, and clearly no one cares what he thinks because he was not involved. We used to be a strategic player on the global stage, Mr. Speaker, advancing Britain's interests with confidence.
Order, order. You may not wish to hear the Leader of the Opposition. I do. Can I just say, it doesn't do anybody good in this chamber to try and shout somebody down who's speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. They can shout as much as they like, but we all know the truth. We used to be a strategic player on the global stage, advancing Britain's interests with confidence, and now we are on the sidelines. Over the last few weeks, historic events unfolded in the Middle East, and at every stage, Britain has been out of step with the US and out of the loop with Israel. Last week, the Prime Minister came back from the G7, insisting that there was nothing that President Trump said that would indicate he was about to get involved in this conflict. Days later, the US launched its attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. He had no idea what was going on. The week before, Israel launched an attack on Iran, and it became apparent that the UK was not even informed about the attack in advance, despite us having been involved in previous preventative action. How is this standing up on the world stage? On Tuesday, the Foreign Secretary, a lawyer, repeatedly could not say whether the US strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities were legal. This is a government that doesn't know what it's doing. Let me make the Conservative position clear, Mr. Speaker. Iran has been a direct threat to the UK for years, plotting terrorism on British soil. It must not get nuclear weapons. And this is a time for Europe to step up, and the UK should be leading. Instead, we have an Attorney General using international law to constrain and restrict the UK, while the Prime Minister hovers indecisively on the sidelines. What we need is a leader. Instead, we have...
What just happened here wasn't a regular political jab. It was a televised disemboweling. Kemi Badenoch didn't just attack Starmer's foreign policy stance. She dragged his credibility out onto the Commons floor and left it bleeding. Her voice was clear, her blows precise. Starmer is irrelevant, sidelined, and worse, unaware of it. While the world was on fire, with Israel and Iran playing nuclear brinkmanship and the US making precision strikes, Starmer was apparently either uninformed or just plain ignored. He wasn't looped in. Not by Israel, not by the US, not even by his foreign secretary, who stumbled through legalese about US strikes like a deer in headlights. And the most damning part, Badenoch reminded us that the UK used to matter. Under Starmer, it doesn't. You could feel the chamber shift when she declared, "Nobody cares what this Prime Minister thinks." That line won't just haunt Starmer in Parliament, it'll be echoed in headlines, memes, opposition campaign ads, and dinner tables. The foreign policy elite saw it too. Britain, once a lion on the world stage, is now a confused cat in the corner. Under Starmer, the UK isn't punching below its weight. It forgot to show up to the ring.
3 lawyers. Last week, I wrote to the Prime Minister about how this conflict has underscored the folly of the government's £30 billion Chagos surrender deal. The Diego Garcia base is of obvious strategic importance for conflicts in the Middle East. They're shaking their heads. They don't understand. It is obvious. It was used extensively. Diego Garcia was used extensively during the war in Afghanistan, including by the United States. And at Prime Minister's questions, the Prime Minister said that this Chagos surrender had been opposed by our adversaries, Russia, China and Iran. Since then, it has been widely reported that China have offered massive congratulations on the deal and conveyed that it fully supports Mauritius. So can the Prime Minister now admit that he was incorrect to state on the floor of this House that China opposes the Chagos deal? And can he confirm if he still views China as an adversary? Under the terms of his deal, if the US were to launch an attack from the military base on Diego Garcia, we would have to inform the Chinese allied Mauritius government. Will he abandon the deeply flawed surrender deal? Because if not, when will he introduce the legislation setting out the details of the Chagos surrender so Parliament can consider?
Badenoch tears into the so-called chaos surrender deal with surgical force, pointing to one of Britain's most critical military assets, Diego Garcia, and how the UK would now have to ask permission from China's allies if the US ever used it in conflict. If that isn't geopolitical humiliation, what is? Starmer, who loves parading himself as a grown-up in the room, just got called out for signing a deal that even China is cheering for. That's right, he stood in Parliament and claimed China opposed the deal. Then it was revealed that China praised it. Now, either he lied or was clueless. Pick your poison. And the worst part? Kemi didn't even need to shout. She calmly, precisely revealed a reality that Labour desperately wanted hidden. The UK is compromising its strategic sovereignty for absolutely nothing. If the US decides to act militarily from Diego Garcia, the UK will have to notify a government that kisses Beijing's ring. It's the kind of legislative betrayal that should spark resignations. Instead, Starmer mumbles about unity and diplomacy. Meanwhile, voters are learning that under his leadership, Britain's military independence is slowly being mortgaged, while China sends congratulatory telegrams. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive videos on the groundbreaking changes happening in British politics. Let's continue now.
Mr. Speaker, it is crucial that there is a clear, united front in full support of Ukraine which secures peace on their terms. The stakes could not be higher. We need the government to be leveraging British influence in every way it can for Ukraine. So can he tell us whether he pushed for clearer language in the NATO communique about Russia being the aggressor in this conflict? And can he update us on the UK's current position on Ukraine's accession to NATO, given the absence of detail in this year's communique? We must ensure our leading role continues, but this requires strong leadership and an ability to influence. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the Prime Minister may have finally returned to this House after a fortnight away, but in truth, he is all at sea. Irrelevant on the world stage, impotent in the face of rising illegal immigration, and now with 126 of his own MPs all openly undermining his authority, his government is incapable of making even the smallest changes to bring down the cost of our ever-expanding welfare bill. There is no way they're going to be able to pay for our defence. This is a government that is paralysed by its own legal advice, paralysed by its rebellious backbenchers, and paralysed by the fear of being found out for having no real vision for this country.
Now, the gloves are off. Badenoch doesn't just go for foreign policy here, she burns the whole house down. She paints a picture of a government crippled by fear, consumed by legal advice, and sabotaged by its MPs. She doesn't even need a punchline. The fact that 126 MPs are openly undermining Starmer is the punchline. That's not leadership. That's a civil war in slow motion. The welfare bill is ballooning, immigration is unchecked, the defence budget is in fantasyland. And what's Starmer doing? Sitting on legal memos and pretending to be in control. Badenoch didn't accuse him of inaction. She accused him of incompetence masquerading as caution. The image she left us with was brutal. A prime minister returned from a diplomatic tour, floundering while the ship burns behind him. It's not just that he's out of his depth, It's that he doesn't even know he's drowning.
We live in more volatile times than many of us can remember, with conflicts in many parts of the world that are evolving in a very fast and dangerous way. There's never been a more important time to work with our allies and to be absolutely serious in our response. That response was unserious. Unserious. To suggest at a time like this that the Prime Minister attending the G7 summit and the NATO summit is avoiding PMQs is unserious. What happened at NATO yesterday was historic. It was very important at a time like this that NATO showed unity and strength with a commitment to the future, not just to the past. That took a huge amount of work with our allies over the last few days and weeks. We have been centrally involved in that, crafting the final outcome, and we were recognised as having done so. I'm proud that we helped put that summit into the right place yesterday, and the world emerged safer as a result. And that was the unanimous view of 32 allies leaving NATO yesterday. For the leader of the opposition to belittle it just shows how irrelevant she and the party opposite are becoming. They used to once be serious about these issues. They used to be capable of cross-party consensus. And all of that is slipping.
Starmer finally speaks, and somehow manages to make it worse. His tone was calm, but that's the problem. This wasn't a statesman defending global peace. This was a substitute teacher scolding rowdy students for not respecting NATO. And while he tried desperately to appear serious, all he did was repeat the same word like a broken record. It was the most ironic rebuttal imaginable. He called Badenoch unserious while ignoring the very serious charges she made, being misled about China, sidelined by allies, and presiding over a crumbling military strategy. He wanted applause for attending NATO, while ignoring the fact that his entire government is leaking credibility like a punctured raft. Worse, he tried to paint a NATO handshake as proof of British relevance, while Britain's allies literally made military decisions without informing him. And when he said the summit made the world safer, you could almost hear the eye rolls echo from Kiev to Tehran. This wasn't a defense of policy, it was a defense of attendance. And his final attack on Badenoch? That she used to be serious? That's playground stuff. It might play well with some editorial boards, but for working-class Brits facing rising prices, war fears, and a PM who needs to consult legal counsel before sneezing, it was embarrassing. So Starmer walked into Parliament trying to act like the adult in the room and left looking like the intern who brought the wrong files to the wrong war. Badenoch didn't just humiliate him with one line, she outclassed him with strategy, facts, and fearlessness. He wants to be seen as a global player. But the truth is, he's a ghost on the international stage, a whisper in NATO, and a punchline in Beijing. And the people? They're beginning to notice. If even Starmer's MPs are turning against him, how can he lead a country? Let us know in the comments section. Can Britain have a worse leader than Starmer? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to get more updates on British politics and how events are changing it. Until the next video, stay tuned.